It's shiny. It's awesome. It's cool. It's a piece of hardware that I can give for my baby boy.
Porque eu não comi nada antes.
You know, absolutely. Hold on, I'm talking, brother. 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 Hold on, I'm talking, brother.
Hello, and welcome back to Hold On, I'm Talking, Brother. My name is Joe Greenwood, and you are listening to our UFC 273 review of Volkanovski versus the Korean Zombie from Jacksonville, Florida. A place that I hope the UFC never go back to again, because that crowd was arse. Tom Ballum, my regular co-host, how much did you enjoy this card, and how hyped are you, not even just to think about it, but to talk about this card?
That's the one, Joe. I am so looking forward to getting your opinions here, because we've adopted this new strategy on the pod to keep these reviews fresh. We don't really talk about it until we can get on the mic. It's Tuesday. It's been a couple of days. Joe, I haven't been able to sleep, man. This was a crazy card with so many talking points.
You're right, actually. You're very right. I was a little bit arsey before we started recording about this, but Tom reminded me this card was actually wild. Okay, let's start though. Let's start where we should always start, which is the main event. Alexander Volkanovski finishes the Korean Zombie in round 4, retaining his featherweight title. And Tom, what was your main takeaway from these two performances?
So we all love to play the contrarian, and there was a lot of praise being heaped upon Volkanovski for just how sharp, how fast he looked. I mean, the shape he was in was no doubt incredible. That's what I've come to expect from Volkanovski, so that was no surprise to me at all. Unfortunately, I was also not surprised by the performance of Chan Sung-jung. I really felt vindicated in saying this fight should not really have taken place. Chan Sung-jung, he was nowhere near him, was he, Joe?
No, he wasn't. And it's one of those performances, though, where for me it was less the Zombie and more Volkanovski. I don't know if that's your main takeaway from it. I thought Volkanovski... I'm sorry, man. I thought Volkanovski really mixed it up quite well and went away from his usual game plan of the calf kicks and actually took it to a more boxing body kicks, which I found to be quite the interesting turn. I don't think the Zombie was expecting, which then obviously froze the Zombie, and then Volkanovski was just cracking him with some huge shots. I still maintain that I think the Zombie was pretty much the best choice that you could have made in these circumstances, which were far from ideal. And actually, in a criticism of the UFC and of this fight, this kind of felt like a stay busy boxing sort of title fight, didn't it? Where you got one guy who is clearly so much better than the other and is just basically trying to keep rounds in them rather than a true challenge for Volkanovski. I don't know about you, but I think there was some kind of hope that the Zombie could make it interesting, but it was just, I think, impossible.
Well, yeah, it was impossible. It was, and that really proved to be true. You got to this point, kind of like, this is going to be a strange one that I throw at you here, but kind of like Masvidal Diaz, where people are like, all right, just wait to the later rounds. Wait, his power's gonna start to tell. This is where he gets good. He just needs to get punched in the head a few more times, and then he'll be in the zone. And I guess people were kind of hoping for a vintage Korean Zombie performance. The kind of performance he built his name off, where he was able to walk through those shots, and then make it into the kind of fight that he needed it to be. It just never looked like materializing here. And,
no.
I mean, it was sad, Joe. I'm sorry. I'm
was.
sorry. And for me, look, if you've got Brian Ortega boxing you up, how are you going to go and make a fight with Volkanovski? How are you going to make that fight after what we saw in that performance against Ortega? Yeah. I've got nothing good to say about it. There was no moment that made me feel good about this. Yes, Volkanovski, he was excellent, but it wasn't. Zombie was not a worthy challenger. It was sad.
Well, even by that rationale, then, who do you think are the worthy challengers that could have stepped in in this moment. Considering that like Yair Rodriguez had just lost to Max Holloway in a pretty brutal fight that he wasn't going to be ready from. Who else is even ranked up there? To be honest, I still think on a ranking side it makes sense.
This is the problem in that division in featherweight, is that they keep fucking putting Max Holloway against guys coming up. Right, you cannot match up Max Holloway with anyone that you want to fight Volkanovski, because they're just not going to get through him. You know, so also Calvin Kattar was really looking like he could be the guy to mix it up there at the top. I would fancy Calvin Kattar to beat Zombie, by the way, and
I think so now for sure. What,
after that beatdown, or just you've seen?
Well, also
Zombie's
just
decline?
I think the Zombie's decline is a lot more evident at the sort of higher level now. Like, I think he would struggle against Holloway, as in the way that most featherweights would struggle against him. But I think also now you're starting to see like the fact he's 37 at featherweight. Like that's a tough age to be in that division. And there's no aging gracefully unless you're Alexei Oleinik or Glover Teixeira. But like there's no great aging gracefully in MMA.
Well, and there is a common theme in those two guys, right? Both jiu-jitsu specialists, both in the heavier weight classes.
Of course, yeah.
You can't be an older man at featherweight. I guess for me, I mean, looking for talking points from this fight and going forwards, the stoppage, when should it have come?
In terms of what Herb Dean, when he could have stopped it, I think that was about right. Maybe
Agreed.
At the end of the third. But I think personally, yeah, okay, he gave him a minute. He didn't let him get knocked down and take a shitload of ground and pound. He was just battered on the feet, and it's just like, that's enough. And that was the right call. I think the towel should have been thrown in at the end of that third round. And you should have saved the Zombie. They should have saved him. He was battered and beaten, and yeah, end of the third round.
I think you called that just right there, Joe. I felt exactly the same. Again, I think it's probably tricky for his coaches because that's the type of fighter he has been. I don't know. I guess there is an element there that maybe he wants to go out, he wants to be seen to have given it truly his all. And it was only the third round. Interestingly, I did actually think the third round was his best round.
I really agree, yeah.
Clutching there, but yeah.
The
only other one... Sorry.
Yeah, go on. No, you go on.
Well, I was just going to say, because I just don't know how much there is more to pull from this fight, other than what we were saying before we came on, and that we like Volkanovski, the champ.
Okay,
now.
Let me ask you this then. Would you have Volkanovski as the pound-for-pound best fighter in the UFC? I've seen some talk of that. No, still Usman.
That would be like, sorry Joe, like for me, that would be like Usman gets matched up with Diaz, wails on him, and then you call him the P for P. No.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, not having that. I'm sorry. Have you seen Kamaru Usman's title-winning performance and his defenses? Has you seen what he's done to the guys up there?
Yeah, I'm just throwing this out there as a talking point in terms of this.
I'm not having it, Joe. I'm not talking about that. Kamaru Usman is the P for P.
I will consider Volkanovski up there if he beats Holloway for a third time. I have him number 2.
Is that next, Joe? Do you think that's the right fight to make next? What about Arnold Allen? Isn't it time?
You know what? Yeah, I'd rather Arnold Allen. If it was the winner of Allen versus Kattar, that's perfect for me. I'm not hyped for a Holloway fight. I'm really not.
I'm with you 100%. The winner of Allen and Kattar fights for the belt. Look, if it was like this, you're telling me Holloway's going to retire, you only get to see him one more time. All right, yes. I want to see him fight Volkanovski because I love Holloway and I want to see that fight. But I'm thinking these guys are still going to be around for a year or two. I think that's safe to assume. I hope that's safe to assume. In which case, Holloway, match him up with whoever. Maybe make a fun fight for Holloway. You could even go try a bit of 155 again. Doesn't matter what happens. That would be amazing. Give Holloway the chance to avenge that. And then we can have Holloway and Volkanovski one last time before Volk potentially moves up. But let's not get deep into the weeds there.
No.
Just for the listeners, for reference point, I had this one as a decision, so I was wrong. It's a decision win for Volkanovski. It was the same for you, wasn't it?
Yeah, decision win for Volkanovski. I think we were both thinking that he could have maybe got a late finish in this, which is obviously what happened. But yeah, I thought a decision was going to be fair. I thought the Zombie was going to have a bit more success initially, and then Volkanovski was going to pull away. But Volkanovski's boxing in this was superb, and he took away the Zombie's jab, and there was no way in for the Zombie once that was taken away. So, yeah, it was... he completely neutralised him and stopped him from getting going. Right. Co-main event time. The most controversial fight on this card, I think it's fair to say. Tom, I'm going to ask you a simple question. How did you score this co-main event, and why did you score it that way?
So, for me, it's always the case that how you score the event, it's in that moment, right? You're the judge at the end of the round. You write down the score. You can't watch it back, and so it's what your gut feeling was at the end. And obviously, there's a lot of things influencing you there. So I've got what I wrote down here in the moment, and I'm not going to die on these hills, but this is how I felt. Round one, Joe. I gave it to Petr Yan.
Mm-hmm.
I gave it to Petr Yan. Now, I gave it because he was control of the octagon. He was marching forward. He had Sterling kind of pinned back where he wanted him, near to the cage. He was the more accurate striker, I felt, in that round. And I think anything that Sterling did throw... Sorry,
he had the lower output. He had the lower output in that round, though.
I do recognise that, yeah. Lower output, but better accuracy. And I also felt like he defended pretty much everything Sterling put on him. And Sterling had the volume, but he didn't have the accuracy. And I still think Yan blocked most of it. What about you?
Well, hold on. Before I go to my scores, I'm presuming rounds two and 3 you scored for Sterling.
Well, you'd have to kick me off the pod right now if I had anything other than that to say.
Okay. And you scored round 4 and 5 for Yan?
Yes. 100%.
Did you score round 2 as a 10-8?
No.
Okay. So basically, it came down to round 1, which I think most people can agree that.
So we were the same there. That was not a 10-8 round 2, right? It wasn't close for me.
For me, no. There was a lot of people that have been like, well, if you look at the wording of it, exactly, it's just like, yeah, I get that the control and the fact that Yan was never going to get out of that body triangle, and he wasn't really doing anything effective offensively.
I want damage.
I'm, as you know, I am maybe the most conservative scorer of 10-8s that you're ever going to meet. A 10-8 to me is near enough murder. Like, you need to see a guy basically clinging on for dear life to get a 10-8. And Yan was effectively defending. Fine. Anyway, we'll get into round 2 in a second. Round 1, for me, my scoring of that, I gave it to Petr Yan. And I gave it for the fact that he had the control, as you say, the more accurate striking, and also the takedown defense. I thought the takedown defense was really, really good in that. Like, Sterling was nowhere near. And to be honest, I thought Aljamain Sterling was a little bit short of ideas in that first round. And I was thinking, oh dear, you wouldn't want to give round 1 up to Petr Yan, and that's what I felt he did. And
well, just to jump in there, like the one thing I did write on round 1 again that I didn't bring up was I put it with exclamation mark and a question mark. Highlighting something Ray Longo said, not for the first time, by the way, that I've put exclamation marks and question marks after things that Ray Longo says. Beautiful champ, that's one for you. And I couldn't really understand what was going on there. Were they just trying to keep his confidence high because they know what they saw last time?
Was it just the body kicks that he was landing? The kicks, but then saying that the kicks that he landed were. He landed 3 or 4 legs. I don't know, man. He did actually strike Yan by quite a bit in that round. Now that I'm looking at it,
yeah, I saw that. That's what I was saying. Kind of post fight, I did see that the advantage went to Sterling.
This is post fight, though. This is post fight. You're in the moment. You're watching round 1. I gave it to Petr Yan. Have you rewatched round 1?
I haven't. I suspect I would be wavering. That's my feeling.
I wavered massively.
Right.
And so by that rationale, I think me and you agree that this is not a robbery, Aljamain Sterling winning this fight.
It's certainly not a robbery, and that's why I won rematch. Has to become a meme, because that was just so fun.
Round 1, round 2,
yeah,
round 4, round 5. It's just like, okay, Jan, do you want to take round 3, or do you want to be charitable with that one?
I think honestly he was just tired after the fight, and he forgot the number between 2 and 4, because I think he was claiming all of them, Joe. If you're claiming round 2, then you're taking round 3 as well, for sure.
Might as well. Yeah, it was. Yeah, I get this, but do you know that me and you are outliers in this? In that most people scored it for Aljamain Sterling in the media. I think they are on the media scores website. I think 2 out of 25 scored it for Yan.
Wow, that really makes me question myself in that moment. And we do know like just how vulnerable we are to our biases, to the commentary, to the crowd, to the whole shebang, you know. I really feel like if I were to watch that back, I really strongly suspect that I'd be scoring it for Sterling. Which, I mean, we have to praise Sterling, Joe.
Yes.
We have to praise Sterling. Because he did actually successfully identify a major weakness in Jan's game that hadn't really been exploited until this moment. And that's that Yan has fantastic defense. He's able to block takedowns, but in doing so, he turns away to explode back and get out of danger. He gives his back. He creates that space. And Sterling, with those kind of chain wrestling motions, was able to pounce on it like a backpack, just like he said he would. So, really, considering all the kind of hate that he was eating before the fight, I think you've really got to praise Aljamain here.
Yeah, I think there needs to be some praise for him here. And also, I actually feel like a lot of predictions for this fight weren't actually incorrect in how people foresaw the fight going, which was Sterling needs to win rounds early and that Yan would come on later in the fight, which is quite literally what happened. And you were thinking, oh, okay, well, if Sterling goes a round or 2 up, Jan's going to have to take over from round 3. And it just obviously didn't happen because, well, Sterling, round 2 and 3 are pretty much identical. And when you're looking at that as, you know, something to overcome then for Yan, it's quite the obstacle.
Talking about just how good this card was, I'm thinking about the moments in the card. Now, yeah, perhaps it wasn't a 10 out of 10 for a card, but the moment where that possibility occurred to Yan that Sterling could leap on his back that fast, and the look on his face, and just the feeling in there, like, oh wow, this is different now. That was a big moment. And
and it also
a great
also
watch
makes
to
you
see that happen.
It was amazing, and also it makes you now wonder how injured was Sterling through his run to get to that initial title shot. Like, he was claiming that he was badly injured leading into that fight, and I mean, they all are, but
are you proclaiming the era of Aljamain is upon us?
Oh.
Come on, Joe.
He's the most unlikable champion that they've got right now, to the point where even Dana doesn't like him. I wonder if that has anything to do with Aljamain being quite open about fighter pay, but I don't know, we'll save that for another time.
What's next, Joe?
TJ Dillashaw.
Yeah, probably about right. I mean, TJ he didn't win that fight against Corey, which is a bit annoying. He's kind of right place, right time, but you know. Yeah,
and also I was just thinking about this. Is this going to be the first title fight where TJ Dillashaw is the crowd favourite? like he is.
I feel like that's a good opportunity for Aljamain to kind of rehabilitate himself. I feel like,
do you reckon?
If he exploits TJ in the right way, and the talk running up to the fight, and the media covers it in the right way, could be like, Aljamain the good. But
do you reckon he should make that turn of being like, actually, I'm the good guy sort of thing? Because I just find him immensely unlikable, Aljamain Sterling. Like, I don't know about you, but I don't know. I'm just not a huge fan. of him as a person. As a fighter, that was fantastic. Like, as a performance, I know a lot of people in the crowd and I know a lot of people at home were not impressed by the performance, but to be able to neutralise Yan like that's very, very impressive.
Joe, this was one of the things for me. It's like, this is why I love this sport. I mean, like, Petr Yan is so good. He's so good. And
you saw that in round 4 and 5.
You absolutely, you absolutely did. But it's still like, this is a guy that we're looking at to go on and be just imperious now. And he's matched up with a guy that he's pretty much beaten before. He's won the kind of mental battle going in. Everyone's just looking for him to get crowned. And there we go. We find a big weakness in his game. And well, now the exciting thing is, who do we match Yan up with? Who's he going to fight?
Ooh. Do you send him way down the rankings and have to build him back up? Or do you leave him up there as, like, get a couple wins? Because I don't know however I feel about that. Because technically he's lost 2 title fights in a row. Oh, no, he's lost 2 title fights against Sterling in a row, I should say. He won the Sandhagen one.
For me, Joe, he, like, this I-1 rematch, that cannot happen until he wins at least 2 fights. Not just 1, 2 fights. And then he can...
Against?
Well... I mean, this is the thing. You've got just a smorgasbord of choices. It's almost delectable. I feel like we could roll a die and I could just say names that come up and you'd be happy. Joe, I'm going to do that right now.
Go on.
I'm just going to demonstrate how thick this division is. My eyes are closed right now and I'm pointing. I've got Merab. Wow. Merab.
Okay. That would be
a true test, eh? After the way he lost this fight. That would be,
and that's Sterling's teammate as well.
Yeah,
that'd be interesting. I was thinking,
and you got the Russia-Georgia
Cheeto
thing.
Vera?
Georgia thing. Cheeto's, he's not quite there for me. It's not.
Well, he's got the fight against Rob Font coming up, hasn't he? So
if the winner of that fight, I'd be happy with. Yeah.
Oh, that'd be a banger. That would be a banger. I just want to say this just quickly about round 5 of this fight. That I thought Yan was so dominant in that round in all elements. And they kept going back to that DQ position from the first fight where Aljamain's on his knees. And Yan, every single time, scrambled to the back and was just laying on a bit of ground and pound from there. He was still throwing the kicks despite the takedowns. And then his takedown defense in that last round was superb. Like, absolutely superb. I thought that was the best round of the fight in terms of a performance from Yan. But you could... get the sense that maybe he was a little bit desperate, but I like the fact that he was still fighting his usual way. Like, he wasn't like, okay, I need to be aware of these takedowns now. It's like, I'm still going to power through.
Oh, I think he genuinely believed he was cruising to a win.
Do you reckon?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I really do. I think he was like, well, all right, there's a bit of a blip there in 2 and 3, but... Well, no, sorry, in his mind, like, he just dropped round 3. He's already got 3 in the bank.
Right.
All right, let's move on, Joe.
Bro, this is... we are looking at Gilbert Burns versus Khamzat Chimaev. Chimaev wins by decision, which was your prediction for this fight. My prediction was Chimaev by first round knockout. And we were very close to a first round knockout at one stage. This is maybe the best fight the UFC has had in a couple years, maybe. Like, this was unreal.
Octane, maximum gas, all gas, no brakes. I mean, it was wow. It was stunning. It was everything you would hope it would be. It was everything to every man. And the great thing about this one is you can come out with whatever opinion you want, and you can justify it. You can say, well, the hype got ahead of itself. That it's not really real. He's been found out a little bit, and now.
Do you buy into that?
I think there are people who would look at that and say, all right, if he was fighting a guy with a gas tank who could put that kind of work on him like Burns did, and then he has to go into rounds 4 and 5. I mean, Burns started the fade, but let's say you got the Burns that we saw in round 2, all right, but it's round 3, and then you got 2 rounds left. I think you wouldn't fancy Chimaev in that situation. Perhaps.
This is too much of a hypothetical.
There are people out there, Joe. That's all I'm trying to say. There are people out there who look at that and think, all right, I fancy Colby to beat him. I fancy Usman to beat him.
See, now I don't get that from this fight. So first off, how did you score this fight? Because I had it 2-1 for Chimaev, rounds 1 and 3. Round 2 for Burns.
Yes, Joe. And I thought that was so obvious that one of the things that I highlighted, one of the bits of commentary I highlighted from the whole card, in fact, the bit of commentary, which cracked me up at the time, and on rewatching it, made me laugh a second time, so it was 2 times, was a Joe Rogan special at the start of...
Oh, here we go.
Well, at the start of round 3, that might well have been Burns' round, you know.
Oh my God.
Some people might have given that to Burns, and Felder was like,
wow.
Well, duh.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I think most people did, and even the judges all gave it to Burns, didn't they? So
yeah, no dispute. It's 29-28 for Chimaev is the scoring on this.
Yeah, it was. I don't get watching this fight and thinking that Chimaev is not the real deal. Personally, I thought he was incredible. Now let's go through this. The fact that he was switching stances throughout was impressive. His use of feinting was impressive. When he dropped Burns in the first, I thought his use of feinting, particularly in the first round, was particularly good. That feinting went away very quickly though in the second and third. But he dropped Burns with a jab. I mean, it was his power hand though. You know, when he switched stance into the southpaw stance. From there,
it would have been a straight right, but it was the jab.
It was just a jab. But he clearly has incredible power in that division. Problem is that Gilbert Burns was an absolute dog that night and took those shots and came swinging back with a couple shots that would have knocked out any other man. You know, the one where one literally spun Chimaev's head round.
Round 2, that was, wasn't it?
Round 2, yeah. It was. What can I say about this fight other than it was basically a car crash. It was watch it if you haven't. And it was like a car crash, basically. These two lads were just ramming into each other. Do you think that there's a clear weakness that's been shown for Chimaev here? That a Colby Covington can exploit?
So, one of the things Chimaev did show, and one of the bits of commentary I did agree with, was that his takedown defense and balance in one leg looked otherworldly. It looked just ridiculous. Yeah. There was a point where Burns was in on a single leg, had his leg up in the air.
He was dead to rights. He was dead to rights,
And Chimaev just put his leg back down again, and Burns went down with both arms like pulled towards the mat. It was crazy.
Yeah. That was insane. Like, how is a guy like Covington going to take that down? Considering that Covington's whole thing is chaining takedowns down and tiring you out. And also, like, people are looking now like, oh, Covington doesn't hit hard. He doesn't hit like Burns hits, and I feel like Chimaev would probably just walk through most of those shots with absolute disrespect and disregard. And I don't know if Covington could take those shots.
I thought I was going to come in with some fresh takes on that potential matchup, because those were my thoughts exactly.
Yeah, how is anyone watching this and thinking, yeah, Covington will get the better of him? He's just not going to.
I mean,
he can't.
Yeah.
I mean, he can, but it's unlikely, I feel like.
Well, it's just like, can Covington kind of powder puff punch his way to a 4th, 5th round where he's staying away from Chimaev? No, because Chimaev's forward pressure is relentless, and if you can't sit him down or back him up with some power or threaten a takedown, then there's a truck coming through and you're tied to the tracks.
Yeah, it was, and also the fact that Covington has near enough no head movement. He didn't get badly dropped, but he got dropped by Masvidal in the 4th round of their fight when Masvidal was gassed, with a fucking wild swing. And I mean, I think that's a difficult matchup for Covington. And I know that Dana says that's probably the fight next, which is insane as well when you think about the timeline of Chimaev's career. Sorry, Tom, I'm just going to steamroll you just for one moment. When you think about the timeline of Chimaev's career, 11 professional fights, been fighting professionally for 5 years. and he's facing Colby Covington next. My word, what a rise for this guy.
I mean, he absolutely deserves it. There's no one who will make any arguments otherwise. The very fact we're talking about him going in as the favourite against someone of the calibre of Covington, having been tested in this way against Burns and come through, it really shows just how special Khamzat is, and that's certainly something that continues after this fight. I guess what I was going to say was, well, actually, it eludes me right now. It's just I'm so in awe. Well, I think
about Khamzat.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about Khamzat was, look, I think there's still one remaining question, and the question is not can he take a shot, because he took some fucking massive overhands from Burns. He was eating uppercuts. He took some big shots. Yeah. But it's not can he be taken down. It still is like, how is that gas tank? How is it? Now, he looked good in round 3, and he won that round quite comfortably, had a bit of a canter, but Burns dropped off in a major way. Burns he dropped off in a major way. He rallied big time after the first, after he had been split open by some beautiful ground and pound from Khamzat and that straight right that you mentioned, that jab. Burns rallied in round 2, won it comfortably, but he was gone by round 3.
He was gone, but he was gone by round 3.
He didn't have to do much. He didn't have to do that much, you know.
No, they were still trading, but I felt like we weren't in much danger of a finish from Burns, and neither from Chimaev. I felt like Burns emptied the tank in that second to be like, I've got to do something here.
Yeah, Burns couldn't keep that level of output up. Now there are fighters out there that can in round 3.
Yeah, Colby Covington.
Colby Covington. I mean, I'm going to put Usman up there as well as a man with incredible conditioning. That fight,
definitely not suspicious, but save that for another day again.
Yes.
Do you think that the thing is for Burns as well, that he does tire out, or he tired out in that 3rd round because of that power that he has? Because that drains you a lot quicker than what Covington throws out, which is that sort of pitter-patter, sort of just jabbing you in the face, like just being in your face the whole time way.
No doubt.
Yeah, so the fact that Covington has that type of attack, I think that is going to be a bit of a problem when he does face Chimaev. My other question is that is this one of those rare fights where both guys' stock go up because of this? Like, do you feel like Burns is more credible now as a title contender, even in this loss?
I just feel like there's been a bit of disrespect shown towards Burns, really. We were talking about his caliber. We probably weren't highlighting it quite strongly enough in the preview. He's then shown that on the big stage here. He gave Chimaev everything, all the tests we wanted him to face. And I really hope that people do love and respect Burns. Burns, a guy who fights out of Florida, I believe. He trains there. Yeah. And he wasn't really getting appreciated by the crowd. I hope now. He did win them over. You could hear that at the end there. And he did get the acclamation from Chimaev in the post-fight. That's one tough,
tough dude, yeah.
That is one tough dude.
I think that's something that people forget as well, is that, like, Burns was the test and Chimaev passed it. But that doesn't then mean that Burns is worthless now as a fighter. He is still a quality top draw welterweight. Just because he was the test doesn't mean that he sort of can be disregarded because that was his role tonight. I mean, it was just, I feel like this was almost like, myth building in a way of like, this guy is just going to go out there and he'll fight any fucker. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, he's RDA. Like, even referenced in interviews, I want to be RDA. That's who I look up to. And it's like, shit, man. Like, hopefully you don't take too much damage like this again. Hopefully you face some, someone with soft hands, Michael Chiesa perhaps, who just took the number 11 spot from Chimaev. As Chimaev, by the way, rocketed up to number 3 in the rankings now.
And justifiably so, yeah.
By the way, why is Colby Covington the number one contender still? Like, that is just not on, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like
Leon Edwards has got to be there now.
So now we're officially saying that Leon Edwards versus Usman is the fight to make.
We are. That's how I think we lined up in the preview, saying that knockout, first round knockout. Well, that's what I felt. First round knockout for Chimaev. I don't care who. Leon Smith, he's gone.
Yeah.
But in the eventuality that Chimaev does come through by decision, which the more adroit of us did predict, he would then have to fight one more guy. That if that guy's Colby Covington, it's great. If that guy's the winner of Luque versus Muhammad, great.
Luque versus Chimaev. Oh my God.
That sounds exciting, right? Because we really got to see Chimaev's hands.
Oh my God! I by the way, now that you've said that, I'm not interested in that Covington fight at all. Luque versus Chimaev.
But the problem is, Chimaev picks Luque up, does the helicopter, dunks him on his head, and chokes him out. I don't think he trades with Luque, and I don't think he needs to.
Fair enough. Mackenzie Dern defeats Tisha Torres by decision. Again, an interesting one in terms of scoring. Now, you picked Torres by decision, and I want to know, is that how you actually scored it? Did you score it 2-1 for Torres?
So did my innate bias guide me?
Exactly.
It was a tough one to score. It was a tough one to score, and like, how much do you credit submission attempts that are then not successful? Of course, if they're submission attempts that control the other fighter, then that has to count for a lot, right? But then you've also got to credit the other fighter for evading those submissions and still being able to implement their game, which is something we saw in round 2, which was a crazy round. Thanks to
that was mad, wasn't it?
Mackenzie.
I mean,
pulling guard, using a
standing guard.
Yeah.
Like, because Torres was just like, I'm definitely not going to the mat with you. Like, and you're just gonna have to drag me there, like kicking and screaming. I'm getting the impression. By the way, is us talking about round scoring and whatnot? Is this like the equivalent on like Match of the Day when they're just talking about the referee's performance? Like, I don't know how this comes across, but
well, listeners, feel free to submit any feedback on that.
Yeah,
like the inbox does occasionally overflow, but we will get back to you. It's non-stop,
sure.
isn't it? It's crazy being a big-time podcaster. But as we were saying, we want to talk about this. We haven't been able to yet, and hopefully others find it an interesting discussion on the round scoring. I gave it, Joe, round 1, Tisha Torres. Round 2, Mackenzie Dern. Round 3, Mackenzie Dern. So
really,
I
scored it 2-1 Torres.
With round 3 going to
Torres.
Yeah.
I had it for Torres. I thought it was a close round, and I thought that her striking was more impactful. I love that just kicking Dern off and to the cage. I thought was brilliant. That sort of off her back, just punting her basically to the cage. Yeah, I thought Torres clearly won that round, and to be honest, I'm slightly surprised that. For me, I think it's surprising that Dern actually won the fight, and I have some doubts about Mackenzie Dern as a title contender. I do not.
She's nowhere near it. She's nowhere near.
Yeah, if she faces Zhang Weili, like she ain't winning that fight. Like, I'm sorry, Mackenzie, but I'm just not seeing it.
The commentator spent a long time praising her stand-up and the improvements she's made. Joe, it just gets sloppy as hell. Anytime Mackenzie can't get the opponent to the mat, she comes like wading in, throwing looping shots, and she just gets ragdolled. By the
she just get brushed off.
Right, outsized effects. When the other fighter steps out of the line and counters, she's just getting picked off. It was just I wanted to pull you up on round 3.
Go on,
just quickly.
Yeah.
Well. Yeah, because you said you scored it to Torres because of the heavier shots. That's something I don't agree with.
No. More varied shots for me.
More varied. She had the volume, but Dern had the heavier shots.
Maybe. I felt like Dern was pressuring but missing a lot. I think she missed a lot of shots, and to me, that's a bit of a. I don't know,
and she really tired towards the end of that round, which also made it even sloppier. I mean, we talked about the Jandiroba fight where they ended up just having an absolute slot fest on the feet. As you say, Dern versus Wiley, Dern versus some of the other ladies at the top of that division. She's not there.
Can I run you through the stats, by the way, for round 3 in terms of strikes?
Yes.
Torres landed 39
of 50. Go on.
Torres landed 39 of 57, which is 68%. Mackenzie Dern landed 20 of 63 for 31%. That's not good.
In isolation, that is indefensible.
That is very bad.
And
that's just the paperwork makes it look obviously one way compared to what it actually was. But anyway, go on.
Well, no, in round 1 it was the same. Dern landed only 24% of the strikes she threw, at least at one stage during that round, whereas Torres was up around 53% again. So I think when you are considering those metrics, it is hard to score round 3 for Dern. There was the takedown, wasn't there? That was
and also I worry as well for her against these higher ranked contenders. When if you think about round 2, so we both agree that she won that round, and by the grappling.
Yeah.
What's that?
Could that be debated?
Not for me. I think when you're controlling the attacks and that the opponent is just defending, and for me that would be enough of a way to win the round. But it's not so much the fact that was how she was attacking her; it's how she got to that position, which is just you can't rely on that as a method of getting people to the mat. Like clinching up against the cage and then just climbing up on the cage and wrapping your legs around them, trying to pull guard. Like that's. Listen, you got to watch your Paul Craig tapes if you're going to do stuff like that. Like you can't just be doing those sorts of moves. You got to be, if you're a grappler, you got to be, throwing like double jabs into a takedown. Press them against the cage, get a single leg, try and get a trip in there, something along those lines. But it's not a sustainable way of fighting.
She was just trying to bum rush Tisha from the get-go, really. She tried to cover distance very fast. Any hint of Tisha being off balance or near the cage, Dern would lunge in and grab whatever she could, try and tie her up to begin a grappling exchange. But Tisha was pretty effective there at evading that, and it did actually take Dern, as you say, trying to pull guard and jumping up there in the second round. What are you going to say? I mean, what are you going to say? I don't know how much more I can add to that fight.
Yeah, there's not much for me to really say about this, other than I honestly think Tisha Torres was. I think this is more of a robbery than Jan Sterling. Personally, this is way more of a robbery.
I mean, I scored it for Dern, Joe. I am the enemy, but I'm not going to die on that hill. Oh, let's get to the one everyone's waiting for.
Yeah, Marco Madsen. Squeaking a decision over Vince Pichel. Again, going to round scoring here. I had it 2-1 Madsen with the second round going to Pichel, or Pitchell, however you say it. I'm sorry, here. Mate, but Marco Madsen, I'm not having you as a title contender, brother. Like, no offense.
He's miles away, Joe. But you were trying to tell me he's the man to watch coming into this fight.
I thought he was going to be. I thought that this is if he was. I think this is one of those examples of a guy who's taken up all these other disciplines a bit too late in life, and that it's not just going to be a part of your muscle memory. When you look at someone like Adesanya, when it comes to like his grappling and takedown defense, like that seems really ingrained into his game. Whereas Marco Madsen's a wrestler who seems to have bolted on a leg kick and a 1-2. Like there's not a meshing of styles here that he really only managed in the third round, and that was just from like grappling and holding Pichel down. Yeah,
it was. And the other thing that I thought it was interesting here is we've had a few. I I've got a herd of reindeers running past my window here, Joe. Just to interrupt.
Oh my god!
Yeah,
this is
magical moment for me.
For the audio. Listeners, I hope you're happy for Tom.
Right.
I know I am.
Yeah.
Tom, do you want to actually? Tom, get back in the game. Marco.
Get
Madsen.
back in the game. Marco Madsen. Right, he's not there, and what he's not there at is wrestling. He's another one of these Olympic wrestlers. He's Yoel Romero, the top tier guy, the one you expect to turn it on. It just doesn't seem to translate.
No, it's
takedowns,
weird, isn't it?
Not that convincing, and not able to hold the guy down comfortably apart from in the third round. It is weird, and it's just not quite the same sport, is it? Greco-Roman wrestling and MMA wrestling, they are very different.
Do you think it's the case of maybe someone staying in Greco-Roman wrestling for too long and maybe not making that transition earlier? Maybe you didn't see it as a potential career path. I don't know. Because if you look at someone like Usman, who was a decorated wrestler, or Colby Covington, was that they kind of went into MMA in their early 20s.
What about Justin Gaethje?
What about him?
Well, he's a decorated wrestler who can't really
who seems to not be
any game.
Not bothered about it. Yeah, I think hitting mitts is more fun for him. Like,
well,
I think that's what I get from
it. He just
it.
got like Khabib ran through him, didn't he?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess the key difference in the sports is that, you know, once you've got the guy down, you've won, haven't you? In traditional wrestling, whereas these guys they keep kicking, they keep fighting, and you have to hold them there.
Yeah.
So,
well, you're getting elbowed in the head, and
yeah,
you know, there's dirty little tricks happening in there that you don't see. The little nicks and whatnot. But yeah, I don't know. I didn't get much from this fight. Actually, to be honest, I thought I got more out of Pitchell than Madsen from this fight.
Pitchell was fun. Eh?
I watched this. I watched this fight. I watched this guy fight again.
Gunslinger.
Yeah, I'm a fan.
I can't talk anymore about that fight, Joe.
Yeah, fuck it.
But what
anyway,
the
Tom, you
listeners need
retain.
to know, yeah, I retain another. Well, neutralised you with a draw. It's not the way I want to win these belts, but I'm racking them up now with that method. So the Jose Mourinho of
Marco Madsen approach. Just neutralise me on the ground, and it's just like shit.
Just
great, can't
sit
do
on you, bro.
Can I run through some prelims stuff for you?
You can take a couple of minutes because I didn't watch them. I did Rosenstrike, Tybura. I just couldn't do it after Chimaev and Covington.
Well, that was to let you know that was actually cancelled from the prelims due to Tybura
take it away.
Becoming ill. Ian Gary, a man who likes to proclaim himself as one of the best on the mic. If you can tell me any of his great lines, I won't be holding my breath. Eked out a decision win over Darian Weeks, and then proceeds to get on the mic and bore me to death. Got nothing from this. I think Ian Gary's a very young fighter who is maybe being pushed a smidge too hard, and I think he should stick to some prelim fights and rack up some experience.
Sage Northcutt vibes.
That's exactly it. That's exactly what I'm getting from it. Anthony Hernandez versus Josh Fremd. That definitely happened. Raquel Pennington beat Aspen Ladd. Aspen Ladd now is in a bad way, brother. I think we're potentially looking at a cut from the UFC. 3 defeats in a row, a couple bad showings on the stool, and some very weird cornering as well. It's something's a bit off there, I think, and I think there might have to be a change of camp for Ladd. Mike Malone knocking out Mickey Gall in round 1. Mickey Gall, by the way, knocked down, face down, arse up, takes some ground and pound, and as immediately as the ref calls out, Gall just stands up and he's just like, why did you call that off? So Gall, fair play to him, can take a shot.
Was it the kidney failure again? Like in the Diego Sanchez fight? You remember that?
I didn't know if the kidneys are connected to the chin, but he took one full on the chin. It was a pretty good scrap for however long it was, a couple minutes. So I recommend that. That's the only fight I'd really recommend from the prelims.
I'm not watching Mickey Gall on the prelims, Joe. I have rules.
And then the only other thing I'd like to bring up is Alexei Olenek defeating Jared Vanderaa with a scarf hold, brother. He got that old man strength in there, and it was great to see Olenek, whose record now with that win goes to 60 wins and 16 losses.
Wow, what a legend.
What a legend. What a legend of the sport. Right, let's do some news. And there is a big bit of news I'm going to bring to you, Tom. Henry Cejudo, Triple C, the king of cringe, is back. He is back in the USADA testing pool. He needs to be tested for 6 months and then he can officially take on a fight. He is back in the UFC after being, quote, retired for 2 years. Tom, how does that move you? Does that move you in your loins in the way that it has for me?
Joe, it does. It absolutely does. This is a man who's won the big fights out there. He's turned his career around. And I have nothing but respect for him. It's crazy for me to say that because of his antics. But ultimately, for me, he is now a draw. So, what I want to know, Joe, when you say he's back, he's in the testing pool, that's great to hear. Has he commented on this publicly?
I believe so, in that he was calling out Volkanovski after that main event on Saturday night, to which Volkanovski's already responded and say, win some fights and then maybe I'll fight you. I don't know if I'd be interested to see that fight, to see if Cejudo can do it, because he's dared to be great before, and why would you not want to see that again?
That would be truly astonishing.
Yeah, could you imagine?
No, I can't. But I couldn't imagine him beating Mighty Mouse or becoming the bantamweight champion either. So
I'm happy to be proven wrong by Henry Cejudo, to be honest. Although, saying that, bantamweight is really where I want to see him. And him versus Aljamain Sterling?
We can't bump
Jose
him back,
Aldo?
We can't bump him back down to the flyweight mix-up.
No way.
It's too big. All 5'3" Henry. The two fighters you mentioned, that Aldo or
Sterling.
Oh my God, he's not. I'm not having him walking straight back into a title fight. I mean, Dillashaw. I know we've just made a fight for TJ.
Oh, I'd like that again.
It's a bit of a legacy fight, isn't it?
Did you see TJ Dillashaw talking about that flyweight fight he had?
No.
He said this week, my body was dying as I was doing it. It's just like, yeah, bro, we know. Like, we saw you. You looked horrible. Yeah. But yeah, Cejudo, I'm excited to have
Bring
him
it
back.
up. Get him in the mixer. Get him in the bantamweight mixer. Anywhere, anyone. Sounds good.
Title fight. I hear you. Right. Let's... Tom, did you have some news that you wanted to throw at me?
Nothing huge. My assault on the zombie continues. I wanted to ask your thoughts about this. A lot of people think that Asian men not being able to become champion means Asian men are weak, but that is not the case. It's because Asian men are not given as much opportunity as perhaps other races. If I become champion, then more Asian MMA fighters will be given the opportunity to fight in the UFC and potentially become champion. Does he have a point?
Who, the zombie? I don't know. I think that there is... I think historically, the UFC has never really done that well with Asian MMA fighters.
Well, we do have quite a number of big promotions coming out of Asia, right? One,
Rising.
Yeah.
You got a couple of promotions there which they pay their Asian fighters very well. And then I think about that they had Kyoji Horiguchi, who is potentially the best bantamweight in the world. And then they just sort of let him go, and it's like it's a bit of a weird thing to do, really. And he's since gone on and competed and won in Rising, won the Bellator title. He did just lose in the Bellator title fight against Sergio Pettis, who landed maybe the luckiest shot of his entire life to knock Horiguchi out. But I don't know about the zombie thing. I was thinking about this when I saw those quotes the other day, and I think that he's almost right on something, which is how Asian men are depicted when it comes to martial arts and combat sports, and martial arts in general, is that you get people like Bruce Lee, for example, historically, who is a revered figure worldwide. But I feel like, tell me if I'm wrong here, but most Asian men, when it comes to martial arts, are portrayed as, quote, ninjas, and are shown to be like sneaky and use it as like a sneaky cunning thing, which in a way is, well, racist, really. Case in point, WWE, who have one of the best professional wrestlers from Japan in Akira Tozawa, who is a very charismatic guy, and they put him in a ninja costume and made him very sneaky in the last couple of years. So I don't know. I wonder.
Okay, now we don't necessarily align all the time politically, you and I. So without making this a politics podcast, I have to say that it is perhaps accurate that Asian men are portrayed in that way, and clearly the example you've given there would be a key one, very hard to dispute. And perhaps there is an element of society that buys into that and perpetuates those stereotypes. In which case, for those people, Korean zombie, not Chan Sang-jung, but Korean zombie, is right. However, I guess my feeling was that with mixed martial arts predominantly being Asian, my understanding has always been that Asian guys are really hard as nails.
Yeah, but you're looking at that from our perspective of it, of like how we talk about the sport, and then you think about how most viewers of this sport actually view it and how they got into it, and some of their political views, because it's a predominantly right-wing sport. Let's be honest, the political views of some of the people involved in the sport are horrendous. Some of the people actually involved in the sport
are you saying that
awful.
You think that Dana thinks Chan Sung-jung is a sneaky ninja, Joe?
Maybe. I wouldn't put it past him. I just think I think it just depends.
Maybe there's something there. Maybe there's something there. I guess it's like so many of these other kind of hot button issues right now. It's like that might be a reality that's true for some, but I just feel like in the more progressive, the more worldly part of society, the UFC is a truly global sport with global stars, and this just feels a bit like a straw man bit.
Maybe. I think also, I don't know though, because like, I've heard people say things like this, and it's not about Asian men, but when Mighty Mouse was in the UFC and he was champion, and people were like, look at the size of him, I could beat him up. And it's just like, bro, Demetrius Johnson would fucking wreck your shit, and it wouldn't even be hard for him. Like, he would absolutely muller every person that I know. Like, he is one of the most skillful, brilliant fighters. So I think that's often the stereotype is Asian men are shorter and scrawnier, thus they are weaker. And I think that's more the issue in general.
Sorry, Joe. This is where I feel like there is a huge platform in MMA that already exists that combats those stupid stereotypes. That's my feeling, is that MMA is the absolute definition of just is a counterpoint to people who perceive that. So
maybe,
yeah.
But again, though, like, okay, if I think about, for example, my favourite fighters, if I think about like Sakuraba, for example, he's one of my all-time favourite fighters, and it's like, but I feel like that's because of who I am is why he's one of my favourite fighters, whereas someone else might watch him and think he's boring and, he's Japanese, thus he's not going to be that good of a fighter and whatever else. I don't know. Like, it depends on how it is.
I guess we mix in different styles. I have not met somebody who says, "Oh, he's Asian. He must be boring and small and sneaky." But those people do definitely exist.
They do exist for sure.
They do exist.
They do exist. Like, I think if Chan Sung-jung is saying this, I feel like he's based it off of some real life experience that he's had, or some real life feedback that he's had, or something that he's heard in the gym, or experienced by fighting abroad. But when he was in WEC or in the UFC.
Does that mean that I could go on the mic and say, "Look, I want to be given the chance to beat Francis Ngannou and show that men of average height can be heavyweight champion"?
Fucking hell, I'm so glad you said average height and not the white man. Like, I was really worried for a moment you were going to go down that road, but sorry. No, but that's ridiculous though.
Joe,
Of course he couldn't.
Average
be.
height man can be champion. DC, he was already the champ. Take your hate out of here, Joey. Take your hate.
Oh wait, hold on.
somewhere
You've
else.
set me up there, basically. You fucker. Great. Cheers. Thank you so much. Right, Fight Night preview. Let's see if we can do this in a record 80 seconds.
All right, go.
Let's see if I can actually pronounce these names properly. Right, main card. Here we go. I'm going to read a name out. I'm going to read the fight out.
Can you read
Tom,
both
I just
names
want
so I get the choice of both guys?
Nope. Okay. All right. Opening the main card. Munir Lazez versus Ange Lusa.
Ange Lusa? Is that with an S?
Yeah.
Lus-
Loosa.
His name is Loser. I'm picking the other one. I'm picking the other guy, Joe. That's a no-brainer.
He's a Swiss fighter with a record of 8-2.
Answer, mate. Answer. He wins that fight.
Pat Sabatini versus TJ Laramie in the featherweight division.
TJ Dillashaw was a champion. They have the same first name. TJ Laramie to win this fight.
Okay, excellent. Okay, in the women's flyweight division, Mayra Bueno Silva versus Yanan Wu.
Ooh. Asians are not weak. I will pick Yanan Wu.
Here we go. Andre Filiao versus Miguel Baeza.
Filial?
Yeah,
Touchy-feely's Brazilian cousin.
maybe.
Filial?
Filiao? Is that how you
Filial.
say it?
I don't know. I take your word for it. Filial, I will go for it. Him.
Over Baeza?
Shit! No, Miguel Baeza.
Oh, yeah. No, you've chosen it now. All right,
No.
Here we go. I've got two names here that I'm really worried about, but I'm going to give it a go. Caio Boirajo. That was terrible, I'm sorry. Versus Gadzi Omar Gadzhiev.
Do we have a picture of Gadzhiev?
He's Russian.
Yeah.
13-0 middleweight.
All right, enough.
He has a beard.
Yeah.
He has a beard with a slightly trimmed mustache.
Oh, he has a mustache.
Oh my god. Slight mustache, like a slight one.
Like
So he's
fashion.
got the beard. I don't know. It's not the Abe Lincoln beard, but he's got a beard.
Ooh.
13-0. 13-0. Both
I'm
making
pretty
the
sure
UFC debut.
Borahal, or whatever you said then. I think that's an insult.
Borahal.
I think that's a bad word to say. I'm going to pick the other guy.
Borahal. Okay. All right. Anyway, I'm not going to keep doing this. Anyway, main event. Thank God. Vicente Luque versus Bilal Muhammad.
God, what a terrible fight night. Who are those fellas? Apart from Miguel.
This is apart from Vicente Luque, Bilal Muhammad, and Miguel Baeza are about the only people we actually know. Who are you picking for the?
I pray, Luque, the striking hope of welterweight, does not get derailed here. So lead with my heart, Joe, as ever, and unless there's a belt on the line, in which case it's head all day.
Yeah.
And I picked Luque to win by decision.
Lovely. I'm looking at the prelims. You've also got Chris Barnett versus Martin Buda. Do you remember Chris Barnett?
Yeah.
He knocked out Jean Valente and then did that wicked celebration. He's fighting. Yeah. And then also Trey Ogden versus Jordan Levitt. Do you remember Jordan Levitt?
I do. Yeah, he did the splits.
With his weird celebration.
Yeah. And he dunked the guy, right? He knockout by
knockout slam,
yeah.
Yes indeed. Right. Tom, I think we should wrap this up now. We've rambled on for far too long. I'm sorry, listeners. Thank you so much for joining us, though, on this episode, UFC 273 review. Tom retains his title only just, but he does do it, and to which I say congratulations. But that title will be mine next time round, in which we will be talking about the Charles Oliveira Justin Gaethje pay-per-view. Maybe we'll be back next week to talk about this Fight Night card. Tom has a look on his face of please no.
Credit to the guys, new blood coming through. The dedicated professionals we are, we should find out who these guys are.
Yes.
So we hopefully will be back, guys. If not, till next time.
Yes. Thank you so much, Tom, and thank you, listeners, for joining us, and have a pleasant evening.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.